Okay, I've let those in the waiting room in. Tom, you're more than welcome to wait for a minute or so, and then we will get cracking, guys. And I'll just keep an eye on the waiting room for you, all right?
Brilliant, thank you.
Right, Tom, I reckon if you give it a go, and Andrew, if you want to introduce.
Thank you, Lucy, and good evening to everyone. Thank you all for joining us. Welcome to the HASWN Network's second 10-minute mini CPD. We're very fortunate today to have Tom Kidman, who is joining us today from Dorset. He is a teacher of history for many years at a Bournemouth school, and today I'm going to hand it over to Tom. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrew. So the title of this session is about activating prior knowledge to construct history schema in the classroom. So I wanted to just talk about what we mean by these terms. So firstly, activating prior knowledge. Well, that means retrieving from the long-term memory prerequisite knowledge for the lesson. And by prerequisite, I mean knowledge which is going to be useful in that lesson, which they need to have understood to be able to understand the new section of content. And then schema, for those of you unfamiliar with the term schema, is a framework of knowledge construction that is used for organizing and perceiving new information that will become more apparent as I go through. So there's kind of three stages to tonight's session. The what, which I've just gone through, what do we mean by activating prior knowledge to construct history schema? The why is it so important to do it? Because I think this is one of the absolute most important things to consider when teaching. And then how do we go about it? What are a few things, kind of takeaway strategies that hopefully can just be embedded in the classroom. So I think the best way to illustrate why prior knowledge is so important to learning is to consider Robertson's forgetting pit, which is a useful way to have us think about learning and our long-term memory. And I'll put a link to the blog at the bottom of this of the screen, and you can see Bruce Robertson's latest book at the side as well. So when we pay attention to something, new pieces of knowledge enter our working memory, and working memory is where the thinking happens. But we can't keep very much in our working memory at one time. The kind of research around it does kind of shift, but approximately 3 or 4 items we can only keep in our working memory. We can't keep it for too long either. All of these things we pay attention to will fall eventually into the forgetting pit, which is another way about thinking of our long-term memory. So you can see then that there is a point of no return in this long-term memory, and that is where things cannot be easily retrieved when they, despite prompts and reminders, cannot be brought back into the working memory. And that is what we want to absolutely avoid in our teaching. And a lot of this is where the kind of things are obscure to us. So you might have thought about if you've been asked to learn an obscure fact before, you've got nothing to kind of tie it to in your memory, and therefore you can't remember it. Of course, some of the information we pay attention to doesn't fall quickly past the point of no return. It sticks to the walls of the forgetting pit, and this is where I think Robertson's diagrams are really helpful. And this is effectively learning. The better stuck to the wall something is, the better it is learned. This is important to think about in creating memorable, durable encounters with new knowledge. The information which has been learned that is stuck to the wall can then be retrieved. Now, as you would expect, some knowledge can be easily retrieved and some knowledge is very much less easily retrieved. And that purely depends on how far it has gone down the pit. The further down the pit something is, the more difficult it is to retrieve, as you can see from the diagram on the screen. If something has fallen a long way down, it's because we haven't done enough to make that information stick, and retrieving the information will be difficult. So we know, therefore, that making information stick is a really, really important part of that learning. And this is where the idea of schema comes in. So one of the most powerful routes to doing this is to attach new knowledge to old knowledge in order to construct a schema. And introducing new knowledge in relation to that broader schema is an important way to make sure that new information sticks. And then it can be easily recalled later. There's lots of research that suggests we're able to retrieve information when this information is attached to the schema. Therefore, it's really important that we activate that prerequisite knowledge whenever we are introducing new knowledge. And this is a specific type of retrieval practice, as the knowledge you're retrieving has to be related to the upcoming knowledge and the new knowledge you are sharing with students, and are the pillars in the diagram for the new knowledge to stick to. In history, this is often connecting the story from lesson to lesson. And what I've been doing is experimenting with a number of practical strategies to ensure that prior knowledge is activated to help all students construct that history schema. And I'm going to share now some of the examples that I have been working on. Some of these are really, really simple. Well, actually, I think they're all quite simple, but kind of simple fixes to teaching and really supports lower prior attaining students. So this one is kind of a knowledge dump, a brainstorm activity. This is for GCSE medicine lesson about industrial hospitals. First, they have to remember think about what can they remember about medieval hospitals. Then they have to think what can they remember about Renaissance hospitals, and all of that ties through the story of the Edexcel GCSE medicine unit of how hospitals have changed over time. They can't answer how hospitals have changed over time in industrial if they can't remember what came before. Therefore, it's prerequisite, and therefore the new knowledge will attach to the previous knowledge they've learned about hospitals. I also regularly use the writing revolution strategies for this, as this also builds in sentence level strategies for students, which again is really, really important for them to develop. So here we've got different subordinating conjunctions, again, matching or using knowledge they need for this lesson. So this lesson is about the discoveries of Robert Koch and specificity of germ theory, but they need to know about Pasteur before that, which was a previous lesson. So this again ties the threads through. Now, this is from a Tudor England lesson in Key Stage 3, where we're going to introduce Elizabeth I. Now, obviously, as I'm sure you're all aware, one of Elizabeth I's key issues here is religion. To understand why it's such a key issue, they have to remember all the way back to Henry VIII, what's happened with religion. So I put that at the start of a lesson. Usually I put this after a knowledge quiz. Our whole school teaching and learning strategy is that they will always get kind of 10 short knowledge questions. And then as a history department, we would usually do something after those 10 knowledge questions, which helps students tie that new knowledge to previous knowledge. I find particularly for kind of low prior attaining students or difficult groups of students, true or false can be quite useful, because even if they come in with the attitude of I don't know anything, well, they can always have a go at true or false, and you can tease that knowledge out of them. So I think that's quite a nice, easy one to set up. Again, making sure it's relevant knowledge to what you are about to teach them. And then the final one is the one I've kind of been working on quite a bit recently, which is trying to make that schema really visible for students. And that helps to compartmentalize the knowledge which they are learning kind of in an inquiry. So here is from the GCSE Weimar Germany unit. And what I've done is mapped out the challenges of the Weimar Republic. So there's 5 key challenges which the Weimar Republic faced. You might have one of these in a lesson each, you might have 2 in a lesson, you know, whatever fits your kind of scheme and work and lesson length. But this shows students how all of that knowledge fits together. There's also icons there to help students understand it and help that dual coding aspect for them as well. So that was very much a whistle-stop tour of what we mean by activating prior knowledge to construct schema, the research behind it, and also a few practical strategies which I use, and I'd love to see on Twitter. If you use any particularly as well, which work really successfully in the classroom, please do bring that onto Twitter to further the discussion. Okay, Andrew, back to you. Thank you very much, Tom. Look, as you said, this is an opportunity to continue the discussion. Please get in contact with us at HASWN Network. That's at HASW Network. Sign up on our Zoom sessions. The details will follow. The next one I'm very much looking forward to as well is Sarah on Tuesday, the 26th of April.
Forgotten Voices Embedding Oral History from Key Stage 3 up to Key Stage 5. Thank you very much and have a good evening.